What's up, guys? Vic back for another installment of the Bloke Nation. Yes, that's what we'll be calling this, the Bloke Nation. So come and join along with the nation. We have a couple of things to go over. We had a couple of fight cards this weekend with UFC 238 as well as LFA 69, which saw champion Michael Perez defending his world title against former five-time UFC veteran Brandon Moreno, who also went 3-2 in the organization with the UFC. Um, yeah. So before we get started on that, let's pop open one of these bad boys. 805. Again, like I said in the first video, my favorite beer. So let's pop this open and have a little taste. Cheers. Um, excuse me. It was really hot today here in Southern California where I come from, so an ice cold chilled beer hits the spot. So yeah, we're back at it again. We'll be covering my picks for UFC 238 as well as a couple other things, about the flyweight division, if the UFC should keep it or not, as well as what's next for Henry Cejudo, the now two-division world champion. So let's just jump into it. We're going to start off with talking about the LFA 69 main event, which saw champion Michael Perez defending his World Flyweight Championship against former five-time UFC veteran and tough alum, whose first fight in the organization was against Luis Smoka at short notice. And while his season of The Ultimate Fighter was still airing, he won the fight against Smoka. One of his losses is to Sergio Pettis, but yeah, he's a great competitor. He was making his LFA debut, and he was fighting for the world title. He pretty much controlled the whole fight while it lasted. The champion didn't really have answers to what Brandon was throwing at him. Brandon's striking was more crisp. He was landing a lot more with his jab and his counters. And his grappling was just top notch. There was incidents where Michael Perez took the cheap way out by pulling himself up on the cage. That was one instance where Mike Beltran, which I wouldn't want yelling at me in English or in Spanish, gave Michael a hard warning in Spanish and in English for pulling himself up by the cage when Brandon had him in a fight-ending position. They should have taken a point. They didn't. The fight continued. Brandon did go on and win the fight to become the new LFA flyweight world champion. Well deserved. He looked great. I don't know why he was cut from the UFC. He shouldn't have been, but he did, and he's making the best out of it. He wants to get back in there, and the best way is by fighting in the LFA and winning. Especially winning their world title. LFA owner Mick Maynard, which is also the UFC matchmaker, is feeding all his talent from the LFA into the UFC. So that's great for Brandon Moreno. We'll see if he defends the title or if the UFC gives him another shot, which I think he deserves. So yeah, moving on, we're going to get into UFC 238. The card, the card was amazing. The fight card was amazing. The main event was Henry Cejudo going up against former WSOF bantamweight champion Marlon Moraes. And just to get into it, my predictions from the last video, they were pretty hard to pick, but I did go about 50-50 on the win-loss ratio, maybe 40-60. But again, like I said in the last video, it's the fight game. You never know what's going to happen, and these fights delivered. A lot of them were really close decisions, and man, it was great. It was a great time. My friends and I, we barbecued. We had some barbecue. We set up the screen in the backyard, and we watched these fights. It was amazing. So I'm going to get into the decisions for UFC 238 from top to bottom. We had Caitlin winning against Joanne Calderwood by decision. super close. I think it could have went either way. In my opinion, I think Helder would have won that fight. I think she outstruck Chukagian, but again, you don't leave it in hands of the judges because a lot of them don't know what they're watching. But yeah, so Chukagian took that one. I don't know if she's going to be next for Shevchenko. She is ranked number 2, and she's next in line. I think she should get that world title fight against Shevchenko. Then we had Wineland, who I had winning. He won by TKO in the second round. Awesome fight. Wineland was gone for a really long time, and the dude looked amazing, especially with his new mustache. You know, he had the little handlebars and everything like that, but man, he looked amazing. His striking looked crisp. His footwork looked amazing. His counter punching was amazing. The dude looked amazing, and he took out a good competitor, and he did win in the second round again by TKO. Then we had Darren Stewart, against Lewis, and again I picked Stewart to win. I think he was his level is just a little bit higher than Lewis, but again, it's the fight game. It was a close fight again. That fight was super close. I didn't expect it to be that close, but it was super close, and I think Stewart's grappling is what won him the match. Great fight though. And then another great fight. We had Jan beating Angela Hill. I chose Angela in this fight, and that was an amazing fight. The fireworks, the striking, everything. I was actually surprised to see a lot more grappling from Angela Hill, and it's getting more crisp. I think she's been working a lot with Jessica Penne, and I think Jessica's jiu-jitsu is starting to rub off on Angela a little bit. But yeah, another close fight. Jan got that decision, and we'll see what's next for Angela. I hope the UFC gives her another chance. She's always there for a scrap, no matter if it's short notice or she has a full training camp. They need to give her another chance. And then again, like I said, we had Calvin Kattar fighting Ricardo Lamas. I had Lamas winning that fight, but I was wrong. Kattar, man, he came out and he was just striking and landing. His KO in round 1 was ridiculous. I was really surprised with him, and props to him. He beat a veteran of the sport, a former title challenger in Ricardo Lamas, and we'll see what's next for Kattar. He definitely has to move up in those rankings. After that, we had Alexa Grasso versus Karolina Kowalkiewicz, and again, like I said in the previous video, I think Alexa had a lot more tools to beat Karolina. She won by decision, but she dominated that fight. Her striking was more crisp than Karolina's, which I was surprised about because Karolina is a kickboxer. But she has the grappling, she has the jiu-jitsu, and Karolina doesn't really have that. So I had Alexa winning that fight, and yeah, she dominated for all 3 rounds. So props to her. We'll see where she moves on. In the bantamweight division, we had Aljamain Sterling beating Pedro Munoz, which I had Munoz winning that fight by knockout. But man, Sterling looked amazing. His stand-up, his grappling, everything was on point on Saturday night. He was counter-punching very, very cleanly. He knew when to take the shots. His level changes were amazing. Yeah, it looks like he's trying to get that title shot, and I think he's almost there. I think he's almost there. So yeah, we'll see what happens with Sterling. We'll see what the UFC's gonna do with him next. For the ESPN prelims, the main event was Tatiana versus Nina Ansaroff, and again, like I said, there's levels to this game, and Tatiana's on a different level. Her grappling is amazing. The first 2 rounds, she just kind of smothered Nina, Her ground and pound was good. Nina did did pop up a couple times. Surprisingly, Nina has pretty much become a different fighter. Um, I don't know if it's because of her fiance Amanda Nunes um, or what it is, but Nina has that really her dynamic has really changed, and she did really well, especially in the third round. She hurt Tatiana in the ending of the third round, and if she had a couple more seconds, she probably could have finished the fight. But Tatiana got that victory with her wrestling, and her striking looked good. I think she needs to go back to the drawing board and kind of tighten up her striking, her counter striking, and I think she'll be a beast. We'll see. She's gonna get that title shot against Jessica Andrade, but we'll see. We'll see. We still have Rose there, which I think she deserves a rematch, but I don't know if Rose is gonna take it. But we'll see what happens. And the heavyweight fight that we had on the main card was Blagoy Ivanov versus Tai Tavasya. I had Tai winning that fight. I thought he was gonna outstrike Blagoy, but it was the other way around. Blagoy dominated from beginning to end. His striking was crisp. His cage work was really well. He was holding Tai a lot against the cage and dirty boxing. It was a good performance for Blagoy, who is the former WSOF heavyweight champion. So we'll see where he comes from there, and we'll see what happens to Tai, where he goes from here. But after that, we had a bantamweight fight between Peter Yan and Jimmy Rivera. I had Jimmy winning that fight, but again, Peter was on a different level. He dominated Jimmy Rivera. Jimmy was throwing a lot of power punches. He was trying to take that knockout win, but Peter nullified it, and yeah, he had a great performance, and he looked really well. We'll see what happens in the bantamweight division. Like I said earlier, we have Sterling who won on the same card, and we have Peter Yan. So they're both up there. We'll see what happens. And then in the people's main event, my fight that I said I was giving the UFC and ESPN Plus my money for, Tony Ferguson versus Cowboy Cerrone. That was an amazing fight. It was back and forth. They were both just stand up, just going at it. There was a couple takedowns in there, but man, for those 2 rounds that it lasted, it was an amazing fight. Hopefully there's a rematch. I had Donald winning the first round. I think his striking was a little bit more crisp. I think he landed a little bit more. He had a little bit more spunk in the first round, and then I think Tony took the second round. His elbows, he's unorthodox the way he moves. He's very loose, and like he said, it's like dancing in there for him. In his mind, he's hearing the music and he's dancing. He's throwing these crazy back elbows, and I think the ending sequence for that round was kind of cheap. I don't know if he didn't hear the buzzer or if he just took that shot, because they were having problems earlier in the fight card with the horn and people hearing it. So I don't know if the UFC has to fix that or what they have to do, but hopefully Tony didn't take that cheap shot, because I know he's not that fighter. I know he's been out for a little while, and I don't know if he was just trying to take the easy way out or what. Going into the third round, in between rounds, we had Cowboy blowing his nose. As a veteran, he should know better than that, not to ever do that. He did. The air blew up his eye, and he couldn't see, so the doctors had to stop it. I was disappointed in that ending, but I was still happy with those first 2 rounds to see them. I love Tony Ferguson, and I love Cowboy. They're both great fighters. They're both respectful. They don't have to be running their mouths or doing all this negativity to get these fights. They just let their hands do the work, and man, they're amazing. So that was a great fight. Then we had World Flyweight Championship champion Valentina Bullet Shevchenko taking on Jessica Evil Eye. Um, yeah, Shevchenko controlled the first round. Her body kicks were crazy. The sound that they were making, yeah, her game plan was amazing. You know, she was just landing those leg kicks and those body kicks, and it kept giving Jessica Eye problems. And Jessica started defending a lot there, and she was a game opponent. But in the second round, you know, Shevchenko continued with those body kicks. She faked a body kick and she went high and she caught Jessica Eye and put her out cold. She was out cold. They had to hold back on announcing the winner for a little bit until she came to. And you know, it's a sad thing to see a fighter get knocked out like that. But it is what it is. It's the fight game, and you know, God willing, she's okay, and you know, she's able to continue on. But Shevchenko, I think she's going to be a problem for a lot of people. I think, like I said earlier, Caitlin Chukagian should be the next competitor to fight Shevchenko, the next challenger. But I see more of the same from Shevchenko. She's just on a different level. I think her striking and how she doesn't stay with one camp. She has her main coach and her sister that's always with her, but she's always, you know, evolving. She goes to all these different training camps. She goes to the UFC Performance Institute. She's just an open book pretty much. She's willing to do anything and everything, and I think that's why it's hard for them to get to that level with her. I think she's going to be a champion for a really, really long time. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what the UFC does with her. But yeah, Shevchenko is no joke. Her stand-up is just, it's amazing. And then the main event saw current UFC flyweight champion in the men's division, Henry Cejudo, taking on former WSOF bantamweight champion Marlon Magic Moraes. The fight was really good. In the first round, Marlon was just landing. You know, he was teeing off on Henry. Henry would try to come back, but Marlon's leg kicks, you know, were landing pretty good, and his shin kicks were working pretty well. And it kind of got Cejudo guessing his game plan, and so Marlon was able to land upstairs at will. Second round came out. Cejudo did make some adjustments, and Marlon looked like he started to get a little bit tired in the middle of the second round, but he was still landing. I saw him winning the first and second, and then the third, man. Henry, I may not like him. I may not like his personality. I may not like his manager. I may not like how he puts himself out there, but I guess it's marketing. I guess he's doing him, which is cool. But the dude, I cannot deny the dude is a competitor. That guy can scrap, and he doesn't give up. He came back and he finished Marlon in the third round. Marlon looked like he just gave up, like I don't know what to do anymore, and he just kind of laid there and started getting ground and pounded, and yeah, Cejudo won, and now he's the two division UFC world champion. He also has his Olympic gold medal, so you know, congrats to him. That's good. You know, he's building his legacy. I don't think he's the pound for pound great that he thinks he is. After his post-fight conference speech or whatever, he was saying he stole the number one pound for pound ranking. I don't think so. I think there's some other fighters right there that should have it. You know, I think it was kind of his post-fight speech with Joe Rogan was kind of embarrassing. You know, he's calling out these guys in the bantamweight division that are coming off of losses. He's calling out, you know, Uriah Faber, whose last win was against a fighter whose last 10 fights he was 3-7, which is Brad Pickett. So he's calling out this guy, you know, in Uriah Faber that's been retired for a little bit. He had a grappling match with a 17-year-old, and it was a draw. And again, like I said, his last win was against a guy who went 3-7. It's kind of an embarrassment. He's also calling out Cody Garbrandt, whose last 3 fights are knockout losses. Um, 2 in the first round and 1 in the second round. 2 to TJ Dillashaw. Say what you want against TJ. It was proven that his wins against Cody were not. He was not on anything. So, it is what it is. And then he's calling out Dominic Cruz, who's been injured. I don't know how long. Um, he's always injured. The dude gets hurt all the time. Great fighter, but I don't know. He's always hurt. His last fight was a world title losing effort against Cody Garbrandt, who, like I said earlier, just lost his last 3 by knockout. So I think it's a little bit of an embarrassment for Cejudo to call these guys out. He's saying that's because they're legends of that division. Nah, man. If you're gonna call some guys out, call up the new blood, the guys that are on winning streaks, like Peter or Sterling or whoever's next. Not because Cody's your manager's client as well, and that's kind of embarrassing. But in my opinion, I think Cejudo should stay at flyweight. I think his next fight should be defending the flyweight title. He just won the bantamweight title, and I think his next fight should be for the flyweight title to defend it. Keep that division alive. I think the UFC should keep that division. There's so many great fighters there. Joseph Benavidez. There's Jusimar Formiga. We have Sergio Pettis there. We have so many great fighters there that I think the UFC needs to kind of market a little bit more. The UFC and Dana White tend to say that Demetrius Johnson wasn't marketable because he was respectful. He wasn't out there doing the Conor McGregor stuff, calling people names, making fun of people, flipping them off, all this stuff. He was a respectful martial artist. He respected his opponents. He went in there and did some amazing things, like against Ray Borg, his flying armbar or beating guys with 1 second left. He never was okay with getting a decision. He always wanted to finish the fight. I think Demetrius Johnson is the pound for pound great. No matter if he's in the UFC or won championship or wherever he's at, that guy is amazing. He's a legend at flyweight. But again, yeah, I think the UFC should keep that division. I think that division is an amazing division. I just think, like I said, Dana is saying, oh, he wasn't marketable, or we tried. And why is it that one championship is using DJ's accomplishments in the UFC better than the UFC is? They're always putting 12-time world champion, and people followed him to one championship. People that didn't know about one championship, oh, well, where's Mighty Mouse going? They followed him to one championship. And why is it that people are doing that? It's because one championship is willing to put their time and effort into Demetrius Johnson. The UFC wasn't, for whatever reason. There was negotiations and bad blood because Dana didn't like that DJ was asking for more money or whatever, when he deserved it. He broke the most consecutive world title defenses. But we all know how Dana White is, and he holds grudges and everything like that. So, I think it's sad. But yeah, Cejudo should be defending his flyweight title. I think he should fight Jussier. I think Formiga deserves that title fight. He's 9-4 in the UFC. His only losses are to Cejudo, Benavidez, Borg, Dotson. He beat Pettis, who actually has a win over Benavidez. All these guys that he's lost to have fought for the world title already and are world champions. So give him the shot. The UFC needs to give him a shot, and I think they need to keep that division because there's that division is remarkable. They're fast. They have knockout power. Their grappling is top notch. I think it's great. I think that division is great, and So yeah, that's my opinion on the UFC and that situation with the flyweight division and what's next for Cejudo. We do have some fights coming up this weekend with Bellator. I think it's going to be pretty good matchup, pretty good card.
It has Neiman Gracie fighting Rory McDonald for the welterweight championship, part of the welterweight Grand Prix. We also have Machida versus American Gangster, Chael P. Sonnen. There's a bunch of other great fights on that card. I will be reviewing it beforehand, making my picks. But yeah, go ahead and leave some comments if you agree with my opinions and my picks. Hit the like and subscribe button. Come back. We have a lot more coming. We have some beer reviews coming. We have a lot more fights coming up. So yeah, just come take a look and see what's going on this channel. Join the nation. Become a bloke. And yeah, Vic out.
Whack!